Everybody, this is Rama Screen at the LA Film Festival 2018. And I just saw an epic movie last night, The Dead Center. And I'm here with the stars of the film, Jeremy and Shane, and the writer-director, Billy. Billy, let me start with you. Where's this inspiration coming from? This for the story, where did it come from?
Yeah, I guess you could say that I've had some people close to me with some mental health issues, and a good friend of mine did pass away a while back with an accidental overdose. And after that, it kind of really got me, and so I started really trying to make connections to people who go through terrible losses like that and trauma, and the randomness of that. And I think that, and I know you were probably at the screening last night, we kind of talked a little bit about this, but I think when, you have somebody like really, your grandma, your grandpa die and they're in their 80s, it there's a certain acceptable level to that, and I think if you have loss happen to you, like with a friend, or God forbid a child or something really horrible, and I think you feel the insanity a little bit more of the human condition, a little bit more of it can get you a little bit more, and I think that was the seeds for me of this film. Yeah.
Now, before I get to Jeremy and Shane, you mentioned last night briefly about this when we talked on the red carpet. I was wondering if you can elaborate, because I mentioned horror, and you said this is not horror; it's a supernatural thriller. Mm-hmm. Last night, though, it scared the bejeebus out of me. The film. So is it horror or thriller? What's it? Yeah.
Well, I don't, I leave that up to people who study genre a little bit more than me. But I mean, I think I said this last night. My inspirations are really stem from these sort of 1970s paranoid thrillers that don't show as much. Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers is, if you watch that film from the 70s, it is so vague. I mean, you don't really know what's going on, and yet you're on the edge of your seat, and they don't show a lot, and they do such a good job of creating tension and a sort of small, that creeps on you and creeps on you and creeps on you. And so I guess I don't think of that as traditional horror, I guess, like I see something like The Conjuring and I go, okay, that's a horror film. You know what I mean? And so that's really the distinction I was making. So.
All right. For both of you, Jeremy and Shane, wondering, maybe I'll start with Jeremy and then we can hand over the mic to Shane. What is it about the characters, JD, John Doe, and Daniel, that jump at you when you read them on the pages on Billy's script? And also, what were some of your research or process to prepare you to embody these roles?
Sure. Billy and I did a short film 8 years ago or so. It's probably more than that, but it was called The Suicide Tapes. And Suicide Tapes really was the seed, I think, for what eventually turned into The Dead Center. And I played that. The character you see in The Dead Center really originally, for me, originated from that John Doe character originated from that short years and years ago. So it's something, the character really is something that has been in my, I don't know, it's sort of been in my mindset, psychologically, it's kind of been there for a while, kind of ruminating, and so forth. So and Billy and I have talked a lot about it over the years, and as he was writing his first and second, third, whatever drafts, we talked a lot about the character in terms of how to flesh the character out more, the differentiation between the John Doe character who has amnesia and the Michael Clark character who does not have amnesia. It's a different character. It's a slightly different character, and of course this embodiment of the chaos of death, the inevitability of death being this. We don't know what to call him, but this entity, this thing, this abstract thing, and how to differentiate those things. Yeah.
So I think the thing I was most interested in Daniel and the character is that so he's this doctor, and as you watch the story, he seems to be the only one who seems to be really paying attention to what's going on. Everybody else seems to be a little not in on the odd happenings in this place. And so I kept asking myself, well, why is this guy special? Like, what's his superpower or whatever? And so Billy and I talked about his backstory, and, Billy had talked about Daniel's mom having committed suicide and all of these things. And so I started to see him so his empathy comes from the fact that he's already seen this and he hasn't dealt with it yet. So when he's dealing with these patients, in a way, in my head, it's almost selfish. It's a way for him to keep trying to deal with his own situation. And to me, that was really interesting. Is the line between empathy and selfishness that he's doing, and that's just the starting point. And then you get to go with all this supernatural stuff, and it really starts to reveal some layers that I thought were really interesting. And I think the thing I wanted to talk about in terms of like research or whatever was there's this documentary called Bellevue Inside Out about Bellevue Hospital, and it's this amazing. It's probably only like 85 minutes, but it's this really good, just slice of life sort of thing. And I think the thing we came away from in watching it is just for the doctors specifically, like how their job becomes triage, like not curing anybody, but just hoping to get a day or two of clarity from a patient so that they can maybe make a choice to maybe move forward in some sort of good path. And just that resigned nature, I think, at least for me, informed a lot of the body language and just how you respond to like this space that's clearly an insane asylum, but you have to do a job. Okay, I'll stop talking.
I gotta tell you, I love what you just said about the selfish and the empathy and that line between. I thought that was great. Yeah, that's perfect.
Now, as far as Bellevue or mental illness hospital or insane asylum, as you say, Hollywood, when they go to tackle those stories, they go towards like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, sort of for the look and the tone and design. Were you going for that too? Was there a pull towards that direction, or did you want to make your own kind of unique look?
Well, sort of back to what Shane was saying, the documentary was a big inspiration. I also read a book called Danger to Self, which was a deep dive in emergency psych.
Okay.
And emergency psych is a lot different than the sort of state hospital that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest took place in, right?
Yeah.
And like he was saying, I mean, it just becomes this sort of like, it's, they're only there for 3 or 4 days. It's like he says, it's like this triage of what can we do just to make it a little easier for them or to get through the day or whatever. So it was a much different approach. But once I read that book, I knew that this is the world I wanted my story to take place in. And so I actually got in touch with the author of that book, and he decided to come on as a consultant. And he's a psychiatrist in emergency psych in San Francisco. He's actually there at the screening last night, actually. I don't know if you got to meet him. Did you? He came to the hotel and everything for us. Anyway, he was a real interesting guy. But he was able to read many versions of the script and help me with that authenticity a lot more, and so that was a great guide for me. Yeah.
As I'm rounding down to my final questions, I want to leave the final questions for you, Billy. But back to Jeremy and Shane. Without spoiling details for my fans, just want to say that one of the scenes that stood out for me when I screened the film last night, it seems like these are very physically demanding roles, especially the confrontation that both of your characters had in that one scene. Talk a bit about shooting that scene. How intense was that? Was there unintentional injury during the process? What was that like?
It was intense. It was intense. We shot that in 6 or 8 hours one night. We shot all night long. It was a lot of fun, but it was like full contact acting, really. The prosthetics, it probably took me as long to get into the layers of prosthetics as it did, to go through, shoot the actual fight scene. But no, it was great fun. Yeah.
I mean, it was fun. I've never done anything like that. It was cool. I honestly think Jeremy did all the work. Like,
No, you did.
well, no, it really, like, I've got something I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm supposed to look like I'm doing. You've got to react to nothing. I mean, a lot of the times.
Because we weren't really hitting it.
Right. Well, and you can't be right, and you can't be looking at where's the crowbar. Like, so I don't know. I think you were doing a lot there. I don't know how obvious. Hopefully, it's not obvious at all on camera. But yeah, you were sort of doing the heavy lifting on all that.
Bravo. It turned out really well. So congratulations. So my final question to you, Billy. We're in LA Film Festival celebrating independent cinema. Talk to me about independently making this film, and what advice do you have for aspiring independent filmmakers out there?
Get more money if you can. No, it does become like this is my second film, my second feature, and and I had more money than I had on my first feature, and it does, and you're like, oh, okay, I got a budget now, and I can really do, but it still wasn't quite enough, and so it really is. Independent filmmaking is really hard, and so if a scene is not working, if a scene in your script is not working, it's not going to magically work when you go to set. It's not going to magically work when you get in the edit room. You're going to have problems with that same scene there. You're going to have problems with the same scene in production and in edit. Fix it as much as you can with the script, especially with independent filmmaking, because you don't have the money to go do reshoots and figure it out later. If it's not working on that level, that's and if you have a scene that requires a lot of money, and you go, oh, I gotta have it. Well, just take a minute and say, can I reimagine it? Can I do it in a simpler way? Can I do it with less characters, with less effects or anything, and still have? And a lot of times, what ends up happening, it ends up being better than you thought it was. If you take a minute and say, wait a second, because there's always another way. There always is. Yeah.
That's a priceless advice. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, gentlemen.